tonight's author is journalist, essayist, fiction writer, and a poet. She's also a longtime columnist for the Coastal View News and former feature writer for the Santa Barbara News Press. Her work has appeared in numerous literary journals and anthologies, and she is a winner of the Lamar York Prize for Nonfiction. I'd also like to add that I get a lot of authors in the last 5 years especially, and I always like to see people like David Starkey or other people showing up for the other authors. Not only show up for the authors, but just to support the Santa Barbara literary community. And Fran has done that in spades. She's at every event. She works her butt off to write. She goes to the writers' conference, and she's just out there supporting. So I am so happy for her because it is such a deserving reward to see all of her friends here to celebrate her night. But I'm going to step aside to let Grace give a proper introduction. Grace, of course, is the director of the Santa Barbara Writers Conference. So let's bring her out here.
This is called the delay before the sweet bit. But I want to just give a few tidbits about Fran and her history. I met her in a writing class about 30 years ago, and I was really annoyed with her because in her short story, she used the word propinquity. Raise your hand if you know what propinquity is. A few people do. I did not. It irritates me when someone uses a word I do not understand. And yet I admire someone who uses a word I don't understand because I know that they know more than I do. And I found that to be the case with Fran. She was a very close companion. We were in a writers group after that, and then in a secret writers group for a while. It doesn't need to be secret anymore because we aren't really meeting as a writers group anymore. But you know, everybody would want to join because we were the best. And she refused to believe she was a poet. I said she was a poet when I read her nonfiction. I said, "You're a poet." So she reluctantly tried to write some poems. She didn't think she was really a fiction writer that much. She was nonfiction. Then she started writing fiction, and that blossomed. So she's written all over the spectrum. She's incredibly crabby at times. She laughs well, though, at my jokes, and she did just then. And she really has a depth of knowledge. And she's married to Roger, who knows where commas go, the difference between an M dash and an N dash. And he also taught me much. So I really got an amazing education as a writer. The propinquity of my experience with these two is unparalleled. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce my writing compatriot, but my very, very dear friend, Fran Davis, Fran Penny Davis.
I don't think I deserved all that.
Yes, you do. That's right.
Especially the crabby part. It's really true. You know, all these people, I'm so glad you came. I like my book group, my poetry group, my swim group, my yoga group, my longtime best friend book group. Everybody's here. I'm overwhelmed. So I had to bring notes because I have a really disheveled mind. It's not a function of age. I've always had a mind like this. Roger tells me I write to follow my own trail. So thank you, Chaucer's, for hosting this event, a bookstore that's in the heart of every book lover in town. Thank my family, but they don't seem to have shown up here yet. Except for my sweet husband, Roger, who urged me for many years to write this book. many years, a long time, and so I dedicated him to Roger for waiting so long. So this, and I wanted to thank also David Starkey for writing this lovely endorsement on the back of the book. And I'd like to mention my son Ken, who's supposed to be up here from LA, but hasn't made it yet, maybe it's the traffic, who designed the cover for this book. And my only direction to him was that it be read. And so he chose a chapter in the book that he thought was a turning point, and he illustrated it. And it has a nice wraparound cover, complete with a couple of hints on the back that relate to certain special elements that are important in the book. And he even used font that is, he says, is reminiscent of the 50s, which is when the book was written. Or not written.
Sort of.
A lot of years, but it's historical fiction. And I have to look at my notes because it's the dishevelment. And I like to say the one-liner I like to say is about love, betrayal, and revenge in the McCarthy era. So it does take place in 1954, the summer of 1954, which was kind of the heart of the McCarthy era. And I think it's timely because we're hearing a lot these days about being our time in this nation's fractured state of being a reversal to the McCarthy era, that we're going back to that kind of thing. And I think that time is similar to this one. It mirrors what's going on today with our fractured society, our division, our inflammatory rhetoric, lies, paranoia, fear. Same thing went on then. History repeats itself. So that's the story, and it's set in the fictitious town of Bear River, which is a small town in the California Central Valley, and it's a agricultural town. It's surrounded by peach orchards. It lies like a penny in the sun in the belly of the valley. I'll get it. I may need it. And it's a regular little small town. It has all the bad things and the good things about a small town. It's got the communality, the shared values, the potlucks and barbecues, and common held beliefs. And sorry, there are waving people in the back. The shared values. But it also has the social hierarchies, the jealousies, the betrayals, the alliances and the misalliances, the secrets, and lies. So we have the little town, but it's a functional town. But you layer upon that little town with all its complexities, the fear and paranoia that come with the McCarthy era, and you get a town that's beginning to corrode, that's losing its values, that's losing its sense of civility, that's betraying its own values, that's turning neighbor against neighbor. So that's the scene, the setting for the book. Gosh, people are coming from old Summerlin neighbors. It's lovely. So there are three main characters. There's Althea Bailey, and she has left this town of Bear River about 10 years ago, and she's returned to the town with her family. She's married to Sayre Bailey. He is a transplanted Texan who's worked very hard to earn his teaching credential. And then they have a daughter, Freddie Bailey, who is precocious, imaginative, adventurous, and somewhat disruptive. So those are the three characters, main characters. But then there are other characters that are really important. First of all, I should tell you that Althea has synesthesia. She sees colors when she hears certain sounds. Music always comes with colors, and sometimes voices and other noises can set off images and colors in her head. So Althea feels a little like an outsider. She's different, and she's felt like she's different for a long time, but she very wants to be an insider, an accepted person. Okay, so then there's this other character, very important, Winston Duell, called Wince, and the two of them were best friends growing up. They formed a bond. They were lifelong friends. They're very, very close to each other. Both of them, because they were a little different. Wince came from a bad, abusive family, and Althea, feels like an outsider because of her difference. So they're really been friends. They were so tight, so friends for so long. My daughter finally appears.
There's an accident on the freeway,
Oh.
you know, so other people may try to get here.
So I would finish with Wince, and I want to talk about Katie. So Wince, and she have not. Wince, people expected the two would be married, but they didn't. She married. Althea married Sayre. Wince married Claudia, and he became, in the meantime, those 10 years, quite wealthy. He owns a lot of orchards. He's like a mover and shaker in the town. So the two of them meet. The section I'm going to read to you is their meeting, and it's taken from this section of the book that's illustrated, the cemetery scene. And they have not really had a talk before. This is their first real conversation. They've run into each other, had a few words, but this is their first real scene together. Okay, I just want to say that my daughter Katie, part of my family, along with my son-in-law Albert and my son Cullen, who's supposed to come, were really helpful in helping me create this book. They even gave hands-on help, suggesting places where I might change the plot or do something different to make it better. They even got some of their friends to read early versions of it, hoping, I guess, for a different demographic to read it. Very, very helpful. I'm so appreciative of them and what they've done for me. Okay, so I'm going to read a section of it. I hope you can all stay in your seats and hang around for it. I think I should drink some water first. Feel free to chat with each other. My son-in-law Albert finally arrives.
Finally, Albert.
Big help, Albert. Big help.
Car accident.
Showed me, illustrated to me how to make a creative arc in the story. That was a big help.
And speak up and read slowly, Franny. We know what you're like.
I know, I talk so fast. I'm so sorry about that.
Just a little louder.
Okay, Althea. There's my son, Cullen.
Finally, Colin.
Finally.
Yay!
Cullen, do you want to say some words about how you developed this cover?
Sure. Should I come up there?
Yeah, go on up.
Go for it.
Come on up,
He's a brilliant illustrator, graphic designer. So I asked him instead of the other folks.
First of all, it's beautiful, and in it,
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
there's so much feeling in it.
Well, I'm glad I came across. So, just in brief, the thought behind this cover was the main thing. I wanted to kind of contextualize it stylistically as well as content from the book. So, the scene there is actually a scene from the novel that you'll see when you read it. But also, there's some other small, subtle symbols on the back of the cover as well. And you'll see a cat in the tree, and there's a train in the distance. So those also come up in the book. But stylistically, it kind of harkens toward the post-war era in the design when the likes of Saul Bass was rising in popularity. He basically is, as far as mid-century design is concerned, Saul Bass is basically the most influential designer of anyone, the entire century. So we basically, graphically speaking, live in Saul Bass's world for decades now. But it all came in hand with that kind of post-war exuberance and this kind of generational relief at having come through the war and the Great Depression. That it's kind of this whole triumphalism. They thought we can remake the world in a new image, and this is kind of the part of that, graphically speaking. So the influence of Saul Bass is pretty clear. If you look at like posters, Anatomy of a Murder or Vertigo, the typeface on the title is very much of a time in that regard, and also even the sans type in the name of the author on the bottom there, but in opposition to Saul Bass. I kind of softened the illustrations a bit where he would do like hard cut edges, and so I wanted to give it a little more painterly feel, a little more humanistic, but I wanted to maintain that high contrast style that he exemplified. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where I was coming from, and so that's about it. But I hope you enjoy the book, and thank you for coming, and thank you for.
That was quite a speech. We learned a lot. Okay, now I'll do the reading. Althea set the jar of flowers down and began to hum, bringing in the sheaves. When she was small, her mother called her kitten and sang,
Louder.
Should I stand up?
Just shush them, Sarah, Mike.
When she was small, her mother called her kitten and sang hymns to her at bedtime. She stared at the letters carved on her mother's marker. Florence Marie Dunbar Sparrow, 1986-1953. Her mother's stroke had failed her so completely, it was as if she'd been hit by a cannonball. Althea wondered if she carried the same weakness inside, a tiny, unsecured tag of flesh that would tear off and go floating to her brain to put out all the lights. She pulled off her hat and retreated to the shade of a mulberry tree to sit on a low cement wall surrounding Russell Hare's grave. She cocked her head to study the headstone, canted sideways by tree roots, recalling her childhood fascination with the odd assortment of items in the H&H variety store when Russell Hare was in charge. He was a widower approaching old age when he married Sybil. She got rid of most of the store's stock right away, in the interest of modernization, she said. Althea began to hum "I Come to the Garden Alone" in honor of Russell Hare and his long-gone store of oddities. She stopped when she heard a horse's hooves, dark spurts hitting hard ground. She folded over, wrapping her arms around her knees to make herself small. Invisible hairs stirred on the back of her neck as she waited, unmoving, listening to Wince dismount and secure the horse's reins. Only after he took a seat on the wall a few feet away did she look at him. He wore sunglasses and a western hat. "You brought her flowers," he said. She straightened, cupping her hands over her knees. "I miss her so much." "She was more mother to me than mine was," he said. She nodded. Her mother was the one who went to the principal and talked him out of making Wince repeat 5th grade. Florence said that Hiram Duell had squeezed every last drop of juice out of Wince's mother like fruit through a sieve. No one could stand up to that man, except, finally, Wince. "She feels a little closer here." "The dead don't bother me," Wince said. "At least these folks were whole when they went in the ground." His words were a blur, like erased letters on a chalkboard. "Wince, I'm sorry." She meant about the war. He understood. They had always understood each other. "There's a grass over there in Leyte," he said. "Kogan grass. Grew like a forest." He paused. "It was full of silica crystals that cut you up. We lived in it, died in it. Blood grass, they called it." She flinched as a deep wash of violet colored the blur. Pain had a color of its own, and pain was what she heard. She knew she was the only one to hear this story, that had been waiting a long time to tell it to her. She resisted an old impulse to reach out, touch him. "I don't regret going." He slipped off his dark glasses to rub an eye with the tips of his fingers, revealing a pale spray of wrinkles in his tan. They lapsed into silence, a pattern developed over the years, their time together as much pause as talk. Althea swallowed. "Do you remember him, Russell Hare?" His head ticked sideways. "Damnedest inventory I ever saw." Althea smiled. remembering the overflowing bins, dolls with painted on clothing, playing cards printed in Spanish, tin food with foreign labels, ceramic figures of tigers and frogs, marbles like bright jewels, knives with handles carved with mermaids and bears. She turned to look at him. "How did you get that weather vane?" He chuckled. "I remember you'd like that thing," he said. "Nobody else wanted it. Sybil gave it to Hank Snow down at the mill. He didn't want it either, so I gave it a home." She felt a slight tug as something that lay loose between them tightened. She imagined his warm breath touching her bare shoulder and moved her hand there. "It was kind of you to give Sarah a job." He nodded. "Hope he stays on for the peaches. I can always use a trustworthy man in the orchards." She dropped her hand to rest on her bare thigh. "He's not one to stand around. He'll work until school starts." She tilted her head as a meadowlark called in the distance, its song pulsating bands of gold, orange, and green. Wince tapped the sunglasses against his knee. "You hear I pulled your daughter off the depot?" "You scared the wits out of her," Althea said. Freddie had confessed that she was far more frightened of Wince than the train. She was in harm's way, her and that Erickson girl. "Freddie is a little too adventurous for her own good. A spirited child, nothing wrong with that." She loved the older Lorenzo place, she said. The grounds are like a fairyland to her. It had been a fairyland to Althea too, but forbidden when the Lorenzos lived there, its hedges and gazebos and flower beds, secure behind ornate metal fences. "All the kids in town go there. Does that bother you now that you own it?" He shook his head. "You remember when we heard them singing, those opera singers?" She'd gone there often, standing unseen outside the fence to listen to the woman's soprano calling, the man's deep baritone answering. Once she and Wince sneaked onto the grounds and hid below a window. The colors of their voices were so beautiful they made her cry. She remembered Wince's eyes on her face. He made her tell him about the colors, how they made her feel. He was the only one she'd ever told. It was a house of music, she said. He was looking at her now, studying her face. "You still see those colors when you hear music?" She looked away. "Sometimes," she said. "I envied you that day, your gift. You looked joyful." She looked down at her sandals. "Claudia said you told her I had a gift. I want to thank you for not explaining any further." He cocked his head. "I can keep a secret. It's not easy being different. You know that. You used to know it. I still know it." His tone was soft, familiar. She shook her head to ward off a shudder. He was quiet. She could hear him breathing. "Did you ever pretend you lived there, in the Lorenzo house?" he asked. "Did you?" she asked, surprised. "Not then. I thought about fixing it up." He shrugged. "It's still theirs, the Lorenzo," she said. "In my mind, even ruined. I'm glad Freddie gets to see what's left of it." "Freddie," he said. "Funny name for a girl." "Frederica's her grandmother's name, her other grandmother." He stood up and gazed at her mother's grave. "I remember those cookies Florence used to make. What were they called?" "Hermits," she said, rising. He'd always loved those spice cookies. "I'll make some for you sometime." He glanced at her, a brief sweep of his eyes across the bare skin of her chest. "I'd like that," he said, replacing his sunglasses. He turned and walked back to his horse. She shaded her eyes to watch as he mounted, heard the gray creak of stirrup leather. "Better keep an eye on that girl of yours," he said, turning the big horse away.